been around for a long time, but the dealers have got kind of tripped up in. I've heard the analogy, kind of killing a fly with a sledgehammer. We've been kind of bundled with the big data companies with regard to protecting consumer information, which is a good thing. It's just we've got to go jump through many of the same hoops that these larger entities are having to jump through. So that's one thing. These safeguards, everyone should have known about that for a while. But this new FTC proposed rule, and it's a proposed.
That's where we are.
Yes. This is not into effect right now. And this is targeted specifically at us. And make no mistake, the FTC wants to change the way vehicles are sold in this country. It is a massive government overreach on the doorstep of every dealer across the country. I could rant and rave for probably the next 20, 30 minutes on this. I want all the dealers to know that the NADA has got its back when it comes to this. There are a couple of points that I'd like to make. I mean, the first being, we as an industry are against unfair, deceptive acts and practices.
Of course we are. We've always taught that. Always.
Exactly. And how would a dealer sustain business or stay in business if they did something like that repeatedly?
Now, Mike, is this more targeted to the F&I part of the sale?
I would say part of it, but part of it's just offering price as well. I'll give you an example. The way the rule is written right now, if Jim, if I were to come on your lot and I were to ask you if you have any F-150s in stock, you would have to say, yes, Mike, I do. And then you'd have to list them out. Let's say you had 50 of them. You would have to you'd have to act like a robot. You would have to list out every 50. In addition, you would have to call out the offering price on that vehicle. Gone is the opportunity to build rapport, to qualify a customer. I mean, we're talking about turning our salespeople into robots, and that's just one small example.
Now, if I buy an iPhone and I go into the Apple store, they have to show me every product because I mentioned one product?
It's what it is it's the government thinking that they know more about our industry than we do. It's the government refusing to talk to us about how to make things better. And yes, that's exactly what it is. They're talking about over disclosing everything, having customers sign forms for things that they don't want to buy. The record retention requirements are ridiculous, including, just as an example, every text message that your salespeople would send to a customer, all of that would be subject to records retention. Again, massive overreach. There are already laws on the books to protect consumers against these types of practices, which of course we're against. And the problem with this is not only is it harmful to dealers, but it's harmful to consumers. I mean,
I would think it would be. Yeah, absolutely. If I'm a consumer, regulations have made the sale right now. People say the sale takes too long.
Right.
No wonder regulations. I can't get in and out of an F&I office, just bare paperwork without selling anything at all. No sales, just doing the bare paperwork is going to take 30 minutes.
Yeah, well, imagine doubling or tripling that paperwork. And all the progress that we have made as an industry to speed up the transaction times. And oh, by the way, we have the data. We have the Cox Automotive data. We have the dealer rater information and JD Power that proves beyond a shadow of the doubt that dealers are taking care of their customers and they're getting better at it over time. I mean, what COVID taught us is we can do more of the transaction online. We can do all of it online if that's what the customer wants. Only 5% of them do. The point is you meet the customer where they want to be met. We're getting it done today. And what the FTC proposes is going to take us backward, not forward. And they don't have the data to support this. This is a clear rush to judgment. They gave us 60 days to comment. I can talk more about that if you'd like. We asked for a 120-day extension. That was denied. We needed the 120 days just to get quantitative information to show the FTC that they're wrong.
Do they care? Or are they dead set on?
They do not care. They absolutely do not care.
Max, what's your thoughts?
So listen, I'm not sure what to say here because I'm not clear. If I'm a dealer, what is it that NADA is doing to protect my interests as a dues paying member, right? What am I getting?
That's okay, Mike.
Well, you're getting the full support of NADA and the budget that is going to support all of the things that I'm gonna tick off right now. Number one, we had to submit comments to the FTC, and I got a phone book of comments.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
I got a legal team here that is second to none. I mean, we've got the best and brightest minds here at NADA when it comes to this information. We've got outside counsel helping us as well. So number one is NADA's response. We also have put a grassroots effort together, and that involves not just the members paying dues, which we got 90% membership and have for a long, long time, at least 2 decades that I've been involved with NADA. So we need the members to engage.
That's what we want to. That's what we want to talk about today. How do we get the members to engage, and what do they get for that? We have a big executive audience on this show. You'd be amazed when we look at the stats. And Bobbie Herron, when she comes back, she's doing a chore right now. But when Bobbie comes back, she can tell you some of the stats. We're getting a huge executive audience here, and it's a lot of dealers, and a lot of OEM people too. Can't keep them off. But anyway.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking as Mike is explaining what is in this new proposal, I'm sitting here and thinking, like, who asked them to do this? It's not good for the consumer. It's not good for the dealer.
What's the agenda is what you're saying.
Is this tying into this whole OEM push to go direct? Are they really trying to muscle us out and getting the government involved? Like,
I don't think the OEMs are behind it. No.
Yeah, I'm not normally the conspiracy theorist, but who's asking them to do this?
Mike?
They've got their own agenda. These are relatively young, very smart people that, again, think they know our business better than we know it. And they reference data, but the data they reference is ridiculous. They have a numerator of 100,000 complaints. Now, the FTC has oversight over franchise dealers as well as independent dealers with repair shops. So if you just layer in 42 million sales transactions as the denominator, you put 100,000, and it's not 100% legit, but we don't need to go into minutia here. Let's just say it is. That's less than 1/4% of the transactions out there. Should it be zero? Yeah, we should always strive to get that to zero, but you should not look to change an entire industry for such a small fraction of complaints. In fact, the data that we have in the comments that we submitted, it eviscerates what the FTC.
Mike, people blow out pissed off out of churches. I mean,
Mike, would you say these young, relatively smart people are left leaning?
Pineapple.
Yeah, pineapple.
Pineapple.
We're not going to get political here. We're not going to get political. But yeah.
No, I'm not going there. Democrats, Republicans, they're all like,
it's okay. We have a safe word, Mike. You don't even need to comment.
We're not going there, Max. Okay.
I do have a question though, because I feel like with this being an overreach, as you had stated, and I agree with you, most people that know about NADA are at the principal level, right? The people are actually writing the check to subscribe. Right. However, this affects everyone. It affects every vendor. It affects every person working in a dealership, from the janitor to the top. How do we get more people involved, and what do they need to be doing, Mike, to actually make sure that we're all fighting this together, that it does not reach the finish line, because it does impact everyone?
No, April, it's a great question, and I'll do my best to answer it in 2 parts. I mean, the first part, the door was closed on all of us on September the 12th, 60 days, and we put the full court press on the vendor community. Some of them stepped up, some of them, quite frankly, did not. I don't want to get into that, the who didn't. We also did a full court press on our ATAEs out there in the States, on dealerships. We encouraged them to have their employees and their customers submit comments. And what we have today is over 26,000 comments on this new proposed regulation. If you look at the other proposals on the FTC sites, you'll see, a dozen here, maybe 100 there. There's 26,000 plus. And I don't know where that's going to shake out right now, because there's a process. The FTC takes the comments and then they push them through after they go through some type of review. I'm sure it's for obscenities, those types of things. I don't know where it's going to shake out, but I'm pretty confident that the push that our dealers made and vendors and the states will get us better than 50% against this rule. And that's just, it's the power of grassroots. It's the power of the franchise dealer and the relationships that they have with lawmakers, because that's where we go next.
What can the individual dealer do? What can a dealer do to shore up this movement?
Yeah, the first thing, again, I mentioned the word engage. Dealers need to engage, and they need to understand that this is a threat to the way that they do business. This is a threat to the way they're going to continue to enhance the customer experience. This pulls us back. It doesn't move us forward. They need to get angry about this. As angry as, if I showed you this book, this book was counter to this book. This is the FTC rule. And you read the rule in the first 10 pages, and they say, hey, I'm with the FTC. This makes sense. But then you get into the implementation and the actual lack of research that they did. So number one, the dealer needs to engage. Number two, they need to give us a little bit more time, because we are gonna rely on, again, the strength in the relationships that dealers have in their local communities with their lawmakers, because there are letters that are currently being drafted from basically congressional oversight. And we're going to launch a series of letters. We're going to look for bipartisan support. And look, we're not the only ones that the FTC is after. The FTC is in the news almost every day in terms of an agency gone wild. They are trying to change the way business is conducted across the country. They've got they're drunk with power, and they're going to screw things up.
That's been a subject of this show many times. Is there a list of lawmakers that the dealers can contact?
Well,
is there a list of who we need to talk to?
There will be. It's going to be very targeted. I don't have that with me today.
What I have on that oversight committee should be.
So I had started conversations.
Bobbie.
Oh
yes.
Listen.
That was you.
It was
somebody was trying to make sure we couldn't hear you. They were trying to silence you.
Look at that. No silencing me. What I was going to say is I started conversations with Don Hall when we had him on the show, and we've continued those conversations with the intention of putting together a strategy similar to like a rock the vote kind of strategy that should bring the younger generation and more of what we call an influencer into standing on a stage when we get a chance to, and in every conversation, sharing that list and sharing these oversights, and really prompting everybody within the dealership, and not just the person getting the email, to participate in what could in fact change their future. So those conversations have been taking place, but as I've learned more and more about what I didn't know, and I assume there are a lot of people who don't, that targeted list is part of it, of where to start, where to create change, and where to make your voice be heard.
Mike, we have had a lot of the state ATAs on here. Don Hall, Bob Okanowski, Bob Glazer. We will continue to bring the states on. My whole career was in finance, and the ethical, honest. You never need to lie, cheat, sneak, deceive, or misrepresent to sell finance or to sell a car. And I think most dealers have that. People are dealing with stereotypes from 20 years ago.
Right.
And we got vendors out there that unfortunately are furthering those stereotypes. I won't mention their names, Carvana Vroom. But anyway, we got vendors they're furthering those stereotypes that car dealers are dishonest and that they are the protectors. I'd like to see.
They're the ones that keep losing their licenses.
Yeah.
Right.
I would love to see some restrictions or some pressure put on rogue vendors that are painting dealers in these negative stereotypes that are fathering the public's perceptions. Mike?
Right.
No, I agree. I mean, everyone needs to play by the same set of rules, and that hasn't been the case. You're going to see some stuff, some forward-leaning stuff coming out of NADA on that in the very near future. I was just looking at my notes here. It looks like we've got an energy and commerce letter that may be ready this week, House and Finance. And just so you know, the way things work, we've got about a team of a dozen lobbyists here that are about a 9-iron from the U.S. Capitol and our offices downtown. Again, a team I wouldn't trade for any here in Washington, D.C., but they're only as good as our grassroots. And so what we do is we get the team, we develop a strategy, then we work with the ATAEs. You mentioned Bob and Don and Oganewski. I mean, all friends. We're working together. We have to speak with one voice and work together for the dealers. This is NADA will kind of get the ball rolling, work with the states, work with the dealers. Then we lobby Congress to get the signatures on these letters, and next thing you know, the FTC is starting to feel some pressure. I will mention to this group, we invited Lena Khan, chair of the FTC, to meet with us in Washington, D.C. We had our annual Washington conference a couple weeks ago. She didn't say no. She just didn't say anything. She didn't even acknowledge
it. Didn't acknowledge the request.
Yeah. So those folks out there that think, well, why can't you just sit down and have a reasonable conversation at the table? I mean, this is the CFPB 10 years later. These are things that our team knows their team. They have not been willing to engage and to exclude key stakeholders like folks from NADA, which by the way, all we do is represent dealer interests. We've got no other agenda. To leave us outside the room when these types of decisions are being made is malpractice.
Mike, I'd like to see the same thing as a conversation as we started with Don is, as somebody in the community, in the automotive community, I was surprised by some of the things I learned in my conversations with him and from the participation on the show. And I thought I was pretty in line with what was going on. I'd like to see us have as strong of a grassroots lobby system as we do real lobbyists that are in Washington, right? So that we get a bigger voice from the dealers. And so the people inside of the dealerships who are willing to sit at that table and be loud when everybody else wants to be quiet are on the same team.
Well, in the past,
great point.
In the past, I have been vocally critical of NADA. I mean, that's not a secret. But I want my audience to know today that me personally, I am fully behind NADA and the efforts they're making. I've talked to Mike several times offline, and you need to get involved. If you're a dealer or general manager listening to this show, and you are not actively involved, not financially involved, actively, vocally, you're not lobbying your lawmakers, then you are part of the problem.
Well, I mean, even to April's point, I'm going to take that one further, not just the dealer principals and general managers. From what I've read of this proposal, marketing directors, like even your BDC, what they're saying when they're on the phone with consumers calling in, every single position is going to be affected. And for what reason? What did you say it was, like 0.0024%, Mike? Did I catch that stat right? I want to know the agenda. I'm that girl. I got to figure it out, but might have to knock it down, then figure it out.
I want to see everybody get interested.
Can I read something real quick? It's not super long, but it summarizes
this
much better than I have. This is the conclusion to our comments. The commission has dropped onto the marketplace an unannounced NPRM, that's the proposed rule, that lacks any semblance of a responsible rulemaking that is the product of due diligence. It lacks critical stakeholder input, essential consumer testing, and needed coordination with other federal agencies and state governments. That's the other thing. There's going to be conflict between state law and what they're proposing. It asks a range of questions, but then shuts off the ability for the public to answer them. It fails to support the need or properly measure its effect. It ignores requirements imposed by the Constitution of the United States, federal statutes, other federal agencies, and even the Commission's own rules. In short, it unfortunately fails at every level. That's our position. They need to go back to the drawing board. They need to look at maybe an advance notice of a proposed rule. They need to get stakeholder input.
Yeah, because usually it's 6 months for the input, correct? And now to see a 60-day window, that's what's got me questioning what's behind this accelerated and shortened time period.
Well, let me jump in on you there, Jennifer. And I'm not going to, we don't do politics on this show, but I will say that the FTC has an agenda, and the agenda that they have is focused. The agenda they have is not going to listen to anything that sways them unless it's a sledgehammer. This is not dealers need to get angry, as Mike pointed out. It's going to take a sledgehammer. It's not going to. This is not speak softly. This is the time to use the big stick.
And that statement that Mike just read, I think perfectly embodies that. They're violating Constitution. They're violating their own guidelines and how they've done this before. We should. Can we get a copy of that?
Listen, let me ask you this: you guys don't think that we're entering an era when laws don't matter? Because look at Uber. Uber broke every law on the books in every municipal jurisdiction around the world.
Uber found a loophole everywhere because nobody closed it.
Right, but I'm saying like cities like New York, San Francisco, London, Paris, all had or used to have a protection for the taxi industry. And none of us here could start, picking up people on the street and make a living. But Uber said all of it doesn't matter. We're going to do this, and you're going to take us to court, and you're going to have to prove that we broke the law. But it will be too late because we made so much money breaking the law. So now you have a precedent, which also Tesla followed.
Yeah, but those are companies.
We're gonna get into that in a minute, Max. That's coming up. That's coming up.
Forget Tesla. Now you have FTC following in their footsteps, because what Mike said makes perfect sense, right? They're violating their own rules. They're violating the United States Constitution, but it seems like none of it matters. They have an agenda and they're going through with it.
Okay, I agree with you 100%. We're going to talk about the manufacturers.
One more,
Tesla.
hey, Jim. Yeah. One more comment, if I could. Dealer engagement is one thing. That's part of the strategy. I will say it as smoothly as I can. NADA is building a sledgehammer in parallel.
Good to hear, Mike. Good to hear.
That's why I'm aboard. I'm aboard. I don't want to see the NADA come limping off the battlefield bruised and wounded.
I promise you that's not going to happen.
Okay, that's what I heard when you and I spoke, and that won me over. So the FTC issue is a big issue. The other issue, of course, is the manufacturers hurtling toward the agency model. The manufacturers, and specifically Ford Motor Company, all of them are doing it in some form, but Ford separating into two corporations. Tesla has defeated the state franchise laws in all but 17 states. What is your commentary to start with, Mike?
Well, in general, I mentioned leaning forward, and I'm literally about 10 days away from being able to share what's been a long but an important consensus building process on what are going to be NADA's principles and guidelines, because we're going to lead when it comes to what the franchise system should look like, on an ongoing basis. And we need to be confident in the value that we bring, because nobody else can do what we do. Nobody wants to. I have a great quote from one of our consultants that we worked with for years and years and years. If you go to an agency model, he says that the dealer, not only will the manufacturer have to learn what the dealers have learned over the past 100 years, that those entrepreneurs are going to have to forget everything that they've learned over the past 100 years. That's a recipe for disaster right there. But that being said, I think our future, it's exciting. Our manufacturers are talking about subscriptions and over-the-air updates that are going to generate revenue. Well, guess what? We're perfectly positioned to help the manufacturers grow. And that's why I'm so optimistic about the future. We just need to make sure that now one manufacturer at a time, NADA can put out guidelines, but can't put out a prescription for the whole industry, is that we give the dealer councils the information they need to make sure that they're working with their car companies with the best interest of the customer, but also to make sure that these entrepreneurs get a good return on investment. Because you put an agent in place, an agent is not going to be willing to make the same investment that an entrepreneur is going to make. And that ultimately is going to hurt the customer. So as you can see, we're not very big on agency here. But again, we represent all dealers. And that's why I've always got to be careful. In fact, I don't even have a great sentiment coming out of the Ford meetings. We had a couple people there in Las Vegas. I mean, I do not have a clear picture yet on some state ATAEs are hot. Some don't see this as a big deal. Some dealers,
I saw that.
It's all over the place right now. So
apathy, a lot of apathy.
Well, I'm not sure. I just am not sure yet. I've had a chance to meet with Ford as well prior to those meetings. I think there's a lot of details that have left to be.
Ford changes their format almost every week. Recently, Jim Farley's been photographed more than Elvis. I mean, he's in every interview, every talk show. Him and Jimmy Fallon are driving around the track in a Lightning. I mean, he's become a celebrity. So what we're dealing with right now, is Ford doesn't have a concrete plan. That now they're saying that the dealers will be involved. I talked to a dealer this week, a Ford dealer in a not rural, but not a metropolitan market, in between market. He said Ford sent him a performer, and I'd have a copy of that, by the way. But they sent him that he has to spend $1.4 million to get 50 units a month with minimal commission.
That's 1.4, nothing else.
1.4 million, and this guy's in a market of about 200,000 people. I mean, it's not and he's going to get 55 units a month.
But Jim, you got to adjust this, for inflation. Next year it'll be like 2.8.
Mike, what's your thoughts?
Well, I point out that I'm not a lawyer, but there are certain things that NADA just needs to stay out of.
There will be lawyers involved. That's just me saying that. I know NADA can't say that, but
we represent dealer opinion, and we do that via our dealer attitude survey. We get a 70+% response rate. We are meeting with the most senior levels at the manufacturer. At most times it's a constructive engagement, but I will share with your audience that we will fight for the franchise system. There's no national franchise laws. There's state franchise laws, and thank God we have them. I was just over in Barcelona. I don't know if that's where you are, Max, but those dealers were, they felt, the feeling from that conference was kind of one of depression, like they didn't have control over their own destiny.
No, they don't.
The work that our teams do in the States is second to none. The fact that we've got those franchise laws and NADA is going to support that. We're going to fight for the system that we all believe in. We do represent dealers, but we also know, and we have the data to support, this is the best system for consumers as well. From a competitive standpoint, from just the level of complexity of the transaction. And oh, by the way, that's just going to continue to increase in terms of complexity with regard to electric vehicles and all the different incentives that are out there from a state level and an income perspective and specific models. Dealers are going to be more important than they've ever been with regard to this journey to electrification.
So I have a question regarding electrification. And everybody on the show knows that I am extremely anti-electrification. So if I was a dealer, I would be curious to know, for example, right now, if you live in Florida with this hurricane, right? Where are you charging your car, right? It's impossible, right?
Right.
So the ridiculous proposals coming out of California and New York, where they're going to go all electric by 2035, just seem that it's not doable in a state like Florida, where
Well,
they are subject.
we know
to
how much I love electric cars, and you can't get gas
I know,
in
but
Florida
I'm
right now
just
either.
curious, what is NADA's position towards the dealers, let's say in the state of Florida, that if I was a dealer in the state of Florida, I'm not so sold on the electrification. If I'm a dealer in New York City, I am not so sold on the electrification, because where are these people are going to charge their cars?
Well,
Right.
don't forget, Max, just the very next day after California announced that movement, they then requested consumers who had electric vehicles not charge their cars.
That's an excellent
because of
point, Jenna.
brownouts.
So what is NADA's position? Because again, at the end of the day, a vast majority of cars sold in the United States are internal combustion engine vehicles. And majority of money made in fixed stops is from the ICE vehicles. So what is the position of NADA towards electrification that we're blindly going into without really thinking it through on a state level?
So our position is very simple, that we are all in. Dealers, franchise dealers are all in when it comes to electric vehicles.
Yes.
And what do I mean by all in? I mean, they're making the necessary investments, putting the infrastructure at the dealership in place, putting the battery storage facilities, bringing in the lifts to pick up those heavy cars. They are all in when it comes to selling electric vehicles. And in fact,
They
if
have to
the
be.
country wants to get, well, that's exactly right, Jim. We have to be. We want to be. The truth is, we haven't had the product to sell. I'll get to that in a minute. But if the government wants to achieve these lofty goals, and I think they do, the only way to get there is through the franchise dealer system.
Let me
Not only
point
are we
something
all
out,
in,
Mike.
we're
The
essential.
California is an executive order. It is not a law. That's a Gavin Newsom executive order from the governor. And politics change. That's the thing. A lot of this is coming from executive orders nationally and statewide. And executive orders, when politics change, those executive orders seem to change.
Well, we're part of the solution here. We've been painted by some as part of the problem. We're not. We're part of the solution. Year to date, at least the most most up to date numbers I have, electric vehicles represent about 5% of the sales across the country.
That's what Max is alluding to.
450,000 or so units. But we're gaining share from a franchise dealer perspective because we now have the product. We sold about 37% of those vehicles. So it's just a matter of time.
Mike, but what would it do to the livelihood of a car dealer in California or New York if that dealer is not allowed to sell ICE vehicles by 2035?
Yeah, again, Max, my position is that the dealers are all in and that we're essential to help a manufacturer and our government agencies get there. And that's about all I'm going to say about it.
NADA is going to do whatever. They can't dictate whether electric vehicles are, they can't dictate that. We got James Ganther on the sidebar. I've posted. James Ganther is the foremost compliance legality attorney in the country. So I'm glad we got James Ganther on the sidebar. He's watching the broadcast. And he said, to Mike's point, not sure that the goals are lofty, but the politics do change. So that's
I mean, I feel like I'm always the one on the show speaking up for the average American in relation to our industry. And let's talk about ticket prices of these EVs. And I mean, I thought this was free trade. Consumers should dictate what they are allowed to purchase. And I don't get me wrong, don't come after me about the environment, because I definitely understand the different implications between renewable energy resources and the fossil fuels. And right now, electricity, for the most part, is still fueled by a fossil fuel. So don't come at me with that in the comments. But the average American cannot afford to be pushed into those things. I am sitting here in a wonderful community where I'm struggling to get awesome, good, hardworking Americans approved on a $25,000 loan. And we're going to talk about an EV where the starting price is $10,000 more than that. What about the average American? This is what fires me up about it. It's not about ICE versus EV. It's the fact that everyone is ignoring the consumer. Sorry, Mike.
April, you've been kind of silent over there.
I'm going to just say, well done, Jennifer Briggs. Well done.
So angry.
Give that girl a sign.
We go out of business.
Here's the thing, though. It gets to that spot where is this the space or the lane that NADA actually can be in, should be in, or participate in, or not? Because ultimately, it affects everyone, just in the same way as the franchise laws do, just in the same way that FTC does. It does generally affect everyone and our big picture long term. If I'm handcuffed and now only can sell 5% because that's all my ability is because of government agencies, well, then I think it does fall into NADA's category. On the flip side, I'll play the other coin. I'm a dealership that is, greedy. So if the consumer wants an EV and I have an EV to sell, I'm going to sell an EV because ultimately I want to provide the consumer whatever the consumer wants to buy so that I can be a profitable dealership.
And that doesn't make you greedy. That makes you diverse. You have to be able to supply the consumer with what they're looking for, or they look elsewhere, right?
Correct.
So it should all be an option. But at the same time, it's like the amount of things that NADA is dealing with right now and needs to be highly focused on. Is this part of it? Absolutely, this is part of it. Because if we don't have that voice, what voice do we have?
But to go back to the
NADA should not get involved in whether we go to electrification or not. That they have to go with whatever is happening.
But the FTC thing, again, this is the spot where everyone needs to
two different issues.
Fight.
Yeah.
If we don't all come together and fight this one and they win, then this will set precedents for them to continue to win in every other area. And so this is that one where it makes no sense. There's no way they should win, but we have to be a united front in every space. And we all need to figure out what we can do to help individually make sure that it doesn't happen.
Well, the one thing that NADA, and I want to go back to Mike on this is NADA does need to get involved in manufacturers defeating franchise laws. Mike?
Yeah, let me first, Jennifer, you said you were sorry. There's no reason to be sorry. We're not that far apart on this. There is no, when I say that we're all in and that we're essential to the journey to electrification, it doesn't mean that we necessarily agree with the targets that have been set. I mean, maybe we get there, maybe we don't. Hopefully we do. That'd be wonderful, but you can't get there without us. And I just have to leave it as we need to be seen as part of the solution with regard to electrification. That's our role. Look, I work for a board of 65 dealers, and I do what they tell me to do. But I agree, we are 100% in the right place, staying right where we need to be on this to protect our dealers' investment for the future. And again, I need to cut it off there.
Yeah. I know. We're getting into areas that we don't need to be.
It's good though, Mike, because and you're taking it graciously, and it's good because the questions that are getting thrown out at you right now and those comments, they're the things that are people asking and they're on their mind. So
they're
totally
good questions.
Totally
they're
appreciate that. Some of it you're gonna have to say, hey, that's where I have to stop. But for the audience, you should also. Yeah, pineapple is our code word, Mike. You can use it.
Oh, you missed it, B. We already had to call it out.
Oh, no, that's why I came back on. I was not done. The big thing for our audience, too, is to recognize that, there's been some changing of the guard in NADA, and there are some positives and there are some negatives that people view. But for our audience, can you not hear me?
World?
No, it was like a whole static over you again.
There's nothing around me. I'm home alone, like nothing.
You're possessed.
I guess so. But for the audience, if you guys can hear me, what I want to say is hold Mike to what he's saying, which is he's not saying that they're not trying to do anything about it. What he's saying is not every discussion can be had in a public forum when it's not time yet. Right. So I just ask that you guys keep that in mind as you're listening.
Thank you.
Exactly. So anyway, the manufacturers are going headlong toward the agency model. That's the thing. I know Joe Eberhard recently said something to the effect that they were going to completely do away with the dealers. Was that Jaguar Land Rover, I guess.
Yeah. I've heard. Yeah. So here's what I wonder. I mean, what makes them think that this is going to be different than any other time they've attempted to do direct to dealer? That's what I wonder.
Ford Motor Company in 2000 went with the Ford Auto Collections, and General Motors they also went with the General Motors Direct Initiative or whatever they call it. They were also buying dealerships.
Yeah.
And the manufacturers have failed every time they've tried to operate car dealerships. And it seems like every time we educate a bunch of them, they retire, and we have to educate a bunch of new ones.
Start all over.
Right. I want to answer Jennifer's question. I'll tell you what they're thinking.
That we forgot how much of a failure it was last time?
No, but I'm saying like they're sitting in their boardrooms, right, with their shareholders, institutional shareholders. And they're saying, guys, look at Tesla. They're crushing it. Why can't you be like Tesla? So now you have this battle in the boardroom. You have the old dogs that understand the value of the dealers. And you have the institutional investors saying, look at the stock price of Tesla. It is greater than all of the OEMs in the entire universe combined. So why can't you be like them so we can get our return on investment? And this is exactly what's happening.
That's what I'll say.
Make it right. It doesn't, Jennifer, it doesn't make it right.
I know.
But these are the dynamics.
But if we don't get in an argument, it's not a Dawg Pound show.
That's a fact. That's a true fact.
I agree.
Max, I respect your right to be wrong.
Hey, Jim, if I could, I'd like to make a couple comments on
Would you please? Yeah.
Jump on it.
I'm fortunate to have folks here have developed relationships with the NADAs across the globe. And it wasn't too long ago that I was on Hollywood Squares with my counterparts from Germany, the UK, China, Australia, Canada, and others, all comparing notes about what the manufacturers are doing across the globe. And I know we're days away from a decision in the Mercedes-Benz a dealer suit against Mercedes regarding agency in Australia. Again, thank gosh we have state franchise laws here. And if you think about it, this agency model, it only works when we've got fewer cars than consumers demand. I mean, selling cars doesn't look that hard right now when you're sitting in a corporate office because everything that shows up at the lot, oftentimes before we've already got it sold.
Mike, monkey with a note in his mouth can sell a car.
I'm not sure if I can do
it. Like, you know what? We'll teach you how.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
We got your back.
So agency, it might look good short term. Even some dealers have come out and said it looks pretty good. But what happens when this goes to this? What happens when we have more cars than we have buyers? That day's coming. We all know it's coming. What happens when others start to try and do what dealers do every day, which is deal with the customers, the transactions, the employees, all the vendors, all of the things that are happening. But to me, agency is just another gimmick or attempt, misguided, but it's something that we ought to take notice. I mean, the direct sellers in some way have some advantages. They're late movers. They got a one-to-one relationship with the customers. This is just a call to me to action that we as dealers, OEMs, and vendors, we need to get our act together. We need to focus on the customer because at the end of the day, a customer cares about two things. They want a great product. They want a great experience. and we're best positioned to do it. But we've been fighting for a long time over a lot of different things. It's time to focus on the customer. And I know this is easier said than done, but it is the theme, and it's something you're going to hear coming out of NADA here again, probably next week, that that there's a much better way than agency, but it is going to involve us changing as well. We can't just expect to do things the way we've always done.
Stellantis has announced in Europe that they're going to go completely the agency model. I've got dealers that right now have 20,000-foot showrooms. I mean, and all of a sudden they're talking about a 3,000-foot showroom, one car showroom. What are we gonna do? Who's the big one out in California? The biggest.
Fletcher Jones.
Fletcher Jones, yeah.
Fletcher Jones. Is Fletcher Jones going to take his showroom and make a big outdoor skateboard and pour him a roller rink out of it? I mean, what are we going to do with these big buildings?
Content creation.
When they get down to 3,000-foot showrooms.
But it's
I'm thinking of Longo Toyota. Yeah.
It's like Mike said, it's a Band-Aid on bullet hole. There are true causes and concerns that bring up the conversation, and there are true conversations and concerns that are propelling it to continue. There are things that need to be fixed, but a Band-Aid on a bullet hole isn't going to get it fixed, and the agency model won't work to finalize that. It'll open up all kinds of other issues that an agency does not know how to handle, process, or use transparency with.
Mike can't say it, but I'll make the prediction. It's going to crash. It's going to crash hard, and the manufacturers are going to come back to the dealers on bloody knees, begging us to bail them out one more time. And that's me. That's not.
I'm going to make my prediction, Jim. I'm going to make my prediction.
Oh my God, I'm afraid. Okay.
I want to hear it.
My prediction is, and I think Mike nailed.
Hear it, Max.
It really easy to sell cars where there's not enough of cars. So if you continue to suppress inventory, you will be able to push this agenda if you're a manufacturer.
And I believe certain manufacturers there are manufacturers suppressing inventory. Yes, there are. I know that for a fact.
Well, let me make a prediction, and my prediction is we're not going to have to have that bloody need conversation, because we are already having conversations with the manufacturers. We are increasingly seeing the manufacturers in Toyota. Just last week in Automotive News, we've seen Mary Barra say it. Jim Farley said a lot of things, but just last week in the Detroit Free Press, all three of these manufacturers and others have doubled down on their commitment to the franchise dealer network. They're speaking of it as a competitive advantage, and they've used the word essential as well going forward. I mean, it just makes common sense. Even Tesla is starting to look more like a franchise model in certain parts of the world. So my prediction is we're going to get this worked out, and we're going to have to do some things differently. But I'm optimistic about not just the opportunity to do things differently, but also to grow as franchise dealers. It just takes a different approach. And we've got a board of directors here that's committed to that approach. And again, we're going to take dealer opinion to the manufacturer, but it's going to be one of, hey, how can we do a better job serving our customer together? How can we grow our business together? That beats agency all day long.
But that's key and core. And we talk about that all the time. Doing the right things right and putting your customer, the consumer, that's what's so great about the franchise model is we're a part of these communities. We're here to serve our customers. And yes, there are people that don't do it the right way, but there are a lot of things. And again, if you're one of those dealers not doing it the right way, please let me know your name, because you'll be for sale soon. And I'd like to be but it's very simple. Take care of your customers.
Well, and look, I'll go a different way here. I don't have a prediction for everybody, but I'll give you some guidance, just some free advice that I normally charge for. And that is that if you are a student of this industry, an employee of this industry, or in any way directly infected on any level, I don't care if you work in the detail department or you're the general manager. If you don't want things to go the way that you don't want them to go, then it's time to make your voice heard. And that means participating in NADA. That means reaching out to the state president that you work with. That means if you're not sure, Google is your friend. Start to get educated on what we're facing, what we're going through, and what that looks like. So that later, it's not just a matter of, I couldn't control the controllable. I'm a victim. It happened to me. You are a victim as long as you do not go out and do what you need to do to get things done. And if you're not sure what it is, pick up the phone. It's really that easy.
One thing, 61% increase in delinquency. The manufacturers have never had to work getting a deal approved, interviewing a customer with credit challenges. And
can you see them rehashing a deal? Good Lord.
yeah, I'm trying to think. How the manufacturer think you're going to sell a car. A Tesla is an elite customer.
Right.
And there are only so many elite customers out there, but the majority of people in a Chevy or Ford environment, more than half are going to have some credit issues that we're going to have to work the banks. We're going to have to work the deal, and structuring a deal can't be done online. That's the one thing that direct online sales has not yet conquered.
Well, and we need both parts. We need the manufacturers. We need us. This is not one lane. We live on a highway, and it has to be managed properly. So just like we say, stay out of our lane. I hate that saying, but it's the best way to say it right now. And let us stay out of yours. And then let the associations intermingle where they need to. And let's all do what we're good at and get better at those things. And that
as we get down into the last 5 minutes we're together, Mike, what have we not talked about that we should discuss in this broadcast?
Oh, I'd just like to do a little bit of an infomercial for NADA.
Please. That's why you're here.
Before I do that, I do think it's important that we all think about our dealers and the employees that were affected by Hurricane Ian down in Florida. And I would encourage the people that are watching to go to nada.org. Number one, if you need assistance, that's what our foundation is for. Number two, if you've got, we've been very successful over the years at helping dealership employees get back up on their feet. So if you've got the means, please consider donating. So that's number one. But then number two, when it comes to the infomercial, just know you've got a team of 165 employees dedicated 100% toward advocating on the behalf of dealers. Or as you know, we got 20 groups and we got a dealer academy. We advocate, we educate, we work for you. That's what we do. We've got your back. There's so much going on right now. As I mentioned, maybe at the beginning, and you look at the financial statements, it's like the best of times, but it's also, there are a lot of concerns. And we're going to tackle them all head on. But the best way to do that is to make sure we've got a united front with the state ATAEs and with the dealers and that. And we talked a lot about it on this call. That requires more than just your annual membership dues to NADA. It really requires your engagement, because I know that together with one voice, we're a force to be reckoned with, and a force that's going to win.
Jennifer, what's the last thing you want to say today?
I just want to say, as we're talking about engagement and getting involved, I think it's important for anybody watching here. And I know that those of us on the broadcast have vast networks, but we will do the best that we can do to disseminate the information for you to get your voice heard. Bobbie is advocating that you got to speak up, right? If you're going to do that. So I think it's our duty to make sure that we can get the information, whether it's, a list of people that every employee needs to write to just to make sure, or if it's events or things they should show up or donate to. I think it's our job to make sure that we show them how.
Absolutely.
What's the last thing you want to say today, Bobbie?
I want y'all to get your act together so we don't have to continue to say the same thing over and over again. Take your seat at the table, and if you can't find it, call one of us and we'll pull you up a chair.
I got 3 extra right here.
Max, what's the last thing you want to say in this broadcast?
I want to say one thing. I think NADA Academy is one of the best things that has ever happened to car dealers. But I'm convinced that even NADA Academy could be made better. And I want to make 2 proposals. First, there should be some entry requirement. You can't just sign up and pay the $10,000 fee to attend, right? There should be an exam, or there should be a number of years that you work at a car dealership before you're allowed to attend. Then, after you graduate, there should be another step, like a master's degree that NADA used to have with Bobson College in Massachusetts. We should bring this program back, because I hear that Amazon is trying to buy AutoNation. And Amazon is going to put all MBAs to run these AutoNation stores. We need to be able to compete by having our own MBAs, right, that are created by NADA.
That's very insightful, Max. I hadn't heard
Yeah.
that before.
I'm shocked that I really.
I'm not surprised that Max has dropped the knowledge.
You are so much brighter than you look.
I know.
Unbelievable, Oh, and Mike Stanton, a pleasure having you here today.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah.
We have limited. We probably had 50 viewers on the initial broadcast. We will have thousands on the replays. We have a limited audience as we broadcast, but the replays pick up thousands. I'd like to have you back.
We're so popular on our reality show. Bravo's trying to pick us up, but we just keep saying no.
Hey, we're on Roku now.
I thought we were on Twitch.
This broadcast is on Roku or Twitch, and we just picked up which one? Twitter. We're on Twitter now.
Yeah, Twitter just picked up too.
Yeah, so that we had 143,000 views of videos on the Alpha Dawg website last month. That doesn't mean 143,000 people saw the website, but there were 143 videos watched for whatever. What's the minimum on that, Bobbie? 10 seconds, 30 seconds?
It's 25% of the total video time or of the initial viewing audience.
So 25%. So 143,000 people watched 25% of our videos last month. So we got, and that's all car people. I don't cater to any audience other than.
We're educating the masses out here in an entertaining and thoughtful way.
Mike, I've got 150,000 friends and followers, and these guys have a big audience. So we're going to reach your dealers. Mike, I appreciate having you here. Everybody, wave goodbye to the audience, please.
Wait, we have to do the.
Oh, the Queen thing.
Van